Hey, howdy and hello, and welcome to The Crazy Train, the comedy podcast with no rails from Emotionally 14. I'm your host, Rob Wade, and I'm joined as always by my rock, the incomparable and inimitable Blake Harmer.
One day I'll sprout legs.
One day you will sprout legs. I thought you were going to say that one day I'm just going to go postal and murder everyone, because I fully believe that day is coming too.
Also a possibility.
Yeah, distinct at this point. And we are joined by a guest for what will be the first of its kind, a podcast experiment like perhaps no other. Mike from the Genuine Chit-Chat Podcast. Hello, Mike.
Hello there. It's a pleasure to be on it.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. So this experiment is a peculiar one, but nonetheless intriguing and exciting. So we're going to be recording an extra long bumper sesh this evening, mad sesh. And then what we're going to do is we're going to split it in two. And if you want to hear both parts, you're going to have to listen to both halves on two separate feeds, motherfuckers. That's what we're going to do. And I'm excited because I think it's the kind of thing that people don't do. And, you know, we may find there's a perfectly good reason why that's the case. But
it just doesn't work at all.
Yeah, exactly. But for now, we're going to give it a go. So what will happen is we're going to go for it. And then there'll be a natural point, I'm sure, in the conversation that breaks where it will be one half Crazy Train feed, and then it will be on the Genuine Chit-Chat feed. And, you know, you'll be able to get the full experience by listening to both halves on both feeds, and everybody wins. Ultimately, we win. Obviously, one downloads, and we'll take whatever we can fucking get at this point. And yeah, and obviously the listeners win because they get to hear two wonderful shows and potentially get introduced to a new one. So
it would be funny. Wouldn't it be funny though if all of your listeners and all of my listeners were basically the exact same people? Like the only two podcasts they really like is the Crazy Train and Genuine Chit Chat, and it's just like this one dude who's just like, oh, I haven't found this one before.
Yeah, do you know? I'd be good with that, to be honest.
It'd be pretty fun though.
I'd be asking why the fuck they don't listen to the Gamecast, but otherwise.
You got several podcasts, haven't you? On Emotionally.
Oh, we're so busy. Yeah, so we've got Crazy Train, which is the one we're on now, and then we've got the E14 Gamecast, which is video games and tabletop, and then we've got Talk Star Wars, which is, you know, I mean, I don't feel like I have to explain that one so much.
Oh, that's a bit of a Star's a bit of a trigger word for me. You say that I get all jittery and excited, so maybe I'll have to come up on that one sometime as well.
Oh yeah, by all means. I mean, we're, you know, Star Wars fans are more than welcome pretty much anywhere on Emotionally 14.
Can you see? I've got a Star Wars tattoo. Audio listeners, you could barely see it at all because I'm like away from the microphone. So it's like
great radio.
It's a good thing that no one can see the audio of this because I look like a creep that you barely see it at all. It's just Darth Vader's helmet up there. And
nice.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
That's massive.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Also the tattoo. Oh my.
The thing is, you can only see me from the waist up, and I'm actually completely pantless. So
that's fine. That's how we roll. So it's good that you just kind of felt compelled. So that's good. That means that the message is coming through. So
the same vibe.
Trousers off time.
You mean people have trousers on?
People wear trousers at all?
Yeah. What the hell's that?
That's absolutely fine.
That's what flip-flops and one sock.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, this is the British way, I think. But this is the Crazy Train ethos. So trousers off time is pretty much permanent. So that's fine. So what is the Crazy Train, I hear you ask? Maybe perhaps those from the Genuine Chit-Chat land, or those just coming to this show for the first time. Every episode is somebody's first. I mangled that, but I'll go with it. The Crazy Train is the comedy podcast with no rails. Last time round, it was the comedy and pop culture podcast with no rails, but I butchered it. So I'm just going to go back to playing to type.
Just keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
Just keep on talking, and eventually something will come out that's good.
I've been working with that theory for 6 fucking years, and not so much.
Eventual goal.
So the Crazy Train is the comedy podcast with no rails. We start from a point and we go where the conversation takes us. Nobody knows where the Crazy Train goes. Now, if this sounds like your bag, then welcome aboard, and we're glad to have you. If it doesn't, then feel free to jump off at the next station, stick a spoon up your ass, and get to Fuck Island. But thank you for trying.
That's amazing.
Nailed it.
It was way more exciting and more interesting than mine. Mine's just kind of, hi, I'm here with this person who's infinitely more interesting than I am. So let's hope that they can keep the conversation going with me to make it entertaining.
The trick with me is getting me to shut the fuck up once I get going. So you're in good company. If longevity is your bag, then you're in good company here.
That's my problem as well. I just don't shut the hell up. And there's just like, you know, I have guests on, and then I've had the odd guest that's like a mate of mine who I'm just more casual with, and they don't have anything necessarily specific to say. So I'm just kind of chatting, and I realize I speak the most. It's like, I'm going to be hosting a podcast. It's not going to be, hey, everyone, let's have Mike talk about himself for like 2 hours and have a little snippet of someone else every now and then.
Yeah.
But
I feel like I can't really comment on this relationship because Blake might just go, "You absolute bullshitter, Rob." Exactly how this operates every goddamn week.
Yeah.
I say week.
I occasionally get a word in. It's fine.
Well, there's occasionally an episode, so
and that was it. So tune in next week.
Enjoy more of Blake, and in a couple of hours' time, when he throws in a joke that you've completely forgotten about him, and he'll just destroy you. That's what he does. Joke assassin. That's what happens.
Silent killer.
Yeah. So, Mike, you are BritPodScene buddy of ours from the Genuine Chit-Chat Podcast. Now, for those who might be coming to this from the Crazy Train feed and might thinking, Genuine Chit-Chat, that's a great name, but what is it? It is a great name, by the way.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Do you want me to fire off and
elevator pitch it? Let's hear.
Let's just do it.
The whole shebang.
Okay. Yeah, let's do this. And what I'll do as well is in the split as well. I'll put your fantastic intro from this part one onto my one as well. So it's all that goodness. No worries. Okay. I said briefly before. Essentially, it's similar vein to Crazy Train in the sense that it's an uncensored conversation that can kind of go anywhere in a sense, but it kind of depends on the guest that I have. So I try and have a different guest every kind of week. It depends how long the episodes are. So I split them in
we
half.
deal in kind of weeks too. That's our unit of measurement for podcasts is, kind of week, kind of month, you know.
Nicely done. And so I just have a different guest each release, essentially, or I try to. And it just depends on how interesting the guest is. But I kind of try and market it to people saying, not everyone's going to be interested in every episode. But if you look at the feed, there's probably going to be at least one thing that interests you. Yeah. I mean, when this, I'll have to talk about it after this, after we've finished recording, but whenever this airs, I've currently got a chat with a blind director called Goff, who is in Australia.
Okay.
He's the first legally blind person to write, direct, edit a feature film.
Wow.
Which is insanity. Yeah, I know. So there's quite a few cool people I speak to. And I'm also doing a chat I've done a chat, I should be releasing it soon, with a gentleman from the Church of Satan.
Huh.
Yeah, so and I'm hoping to speak to a couple of other sort of religious figureheads. Like there's a priest that I've been speaking to as well. I'm just generally interested in religion. So I just kind of like, it's an excuse for me to talk to anyone who I kind of want to talk to. And awesome. If I say to someone, hey, do you want to come over to my house and we can sit quietly in my lounge for 2 hours while I stare at you and ask you questions, people are going to think I'm going to stab them or wear their skin. But,
I mean, I can understand why they might do that.
Exactly, especially when I just run up to them in the street and scream it in their face as well.
Yes. Yeah, with the megaphone, it's a little bit off-putting.
Exactly, yeah, and no pants as well. Yeah. And then if I
thought the skin was for the pants.
Nice.
I'm making pants out of your skin. What you doing Thursday?
What can you use the nose for? Just like pop that off and just, you can use that.
Interesting codpiece. Yeah.
It depends how big the nose is and how small the cock is.
Well, yeah.
That's true, yeah.
No comment.
So
that's my show, yeah.
Yeah, that's I like the whole notion of there is nobody. It's not like there is nobody you won't speak to. Like it's not meant. I realize that sounded a bit of a weird backhanded compliment, but it's not meant to be. I like the fact that there is, there's no. It's like Rogan. Like Rogan has. There's only certain episodes that interest me. I don't know. I know fuck all about MMA. I mean, if you were to see me in the street, you would know that just from looking. Like I'm not the kind of guy who's an MMA person. In fact, I remember once I got one of those. Do you remember WWE used to do those hockey jerseys? The Generation X ones and stuff like that. They did a sleeveless Triple H one. And I didn't really realize what I was in for, but I bought it. I had to return it because even like a size down was just fucking ridiculous. Like I've never worn anything so stupid in my life. And it just, on the game was all I could think when I looked in the mirror. It's like, it's going back to the fucking shop. By then you got a Jericho one. You're right, Blake.
Yeah.
Your mental image of that is vivid, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just really sad that I didn't see this top.
I'll find you a picture and see if I can Photoshop it onto my pasty ass form. Give you a sense of what you'd have been in for had you just happened to stumble across it.
Yeah, sold.
I totally get what you mean with the Rogan thing, though, because really with podcasting, I kind of got into it because of a gentleman called Scroobius Pip, who's a rapper podcaster. And Joe Rogan, I got into Scroobius Pip. He mentioned Joe Rogan all the time, so I was like, I'll check it out. And now Joe Rogan's like my main one. And I was like, I probably know enough people to kind of vaguely do something similar. And it turns out I do. I'm going all right with it. So
yeah.
But I'm the same with Joe Rogan with the MMA stuff. Like I don't listen to every episode he's got.
No.
I probably listen to about half of them ish or so.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do like maybe about half that, probably like a quarter. Yeah. It's just basically every now and then I'll spot a name and I'll go, ooh. Like I had to listen to the Tyson one, like the Mike Tyson thing.
Yeah. I'm not even the biggest fan of boxing, but I just I want to hear it. It's really, really interesting.
Because he's incredibly fucked up as well. And nowhere is that clearer than listening to him on Joe Rogan, where he's like, you know,
the first 5 minutes of him talking, well, I'd probably say the first 15 minutes, I genuinely had no idea what he was saying. And it took me like quite a while to get used to what he was saying.
Yes, yeah. And he's got like the thing I liked about Mike Tyson, and the thing I've noticed this on interviews before, is he's got a laugh that you wouldn't expect Mike Tyson to have.
It's like a little child, isn't
the baddest man on the planet. But I know I could never tell him.
No, he would,
because he would rip out my fucking spine.
Oh yeah, he could just destroy anyone, couldn't he? I feel like if he just clapped, just like a normal one of his like and sword ceremony, and just clapped. If you just put someone's head in between that, it would just be splat. Yeah, totally. I think he probably could think like your blood vessels shut. Just looking like just glaring at you would just be enough to pinch something off in your brain. Yeah, just watch your eyes just start to slowly bleed, and as the nosebleed, he starts like shaking. And then as you're just dropping, you see him go, and then pop, there goes your head. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was hilarious. Yeah, but what I like about it is the kind of you have conversations, and I'm a very big evangelist for the notion that this is the best medium possible for long form. There is no better place out there. Like YouTube's fine. But like YouTube, I mean, it's monetizing podcasts is tricky, but I feel like YouTube moves the goalposts every 5 minutes. So it's hard I don't even know with monetization on YouTube where I'd start, let alone, with podcasts, I at least have an idea of like, if I find a place that does ads, and that might give me an opportunity to do live reads and stuff like that. That's one thing. But like with YouTube, it's like, well, okay, now we have to get to this many views and this many watches. Oh no, it's gone up. And I get it because it's like a gold rush now. Like everybody's trying to monetize every little thing, and they're all looking for the next platform. Like, what's the next successful one going to be? Like Twitch or other platforms I'm too old to understand, like Discord. Yeah, I think there's a Vimeo. I think is another one. I think there's some. I've seen that mentioned somewhere. Yeah, like I think Joe Rogan's mentioned it once. He said he puts it on Vimeo, but he gets like a percentage of the views. Yeah, but it's funny you mentioned YouTube, because I kind of the thing is with me, what I've kind of done throughout the kind of the reason that got into podcasting was so easy for me, even though it's only been a year and a half I've been in the game, was in college, me and a mate of mine had a YouTube show. If you try and look at it now, look it up now, there's a few videos on the channel. It's called Visual Digest. All right. I'm going to put these in the show notes, by the way. So anything you plug is getting noted down for future. Well, you can take a look. There's not really much on there. I haven't added there for many years, but essentially it's there is actually a music video. Right, I'm trying to start 5 different things at once. Let's try and start again. In college, a mate of mine and me, we did YouTube. Essentially, we didn't get on it. We got a few hundred subscribers. Certain videos got a few thousand. Not bad, but it was fun, and I really liked the talking to the camera, talking to an audience, probably because I'm a egomaniac in some way. And we've all got a bit of that, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I started doing that. It was just like a news show kind of thing. We would just talk about random stuff we found funny. We made sketches out of it and that sort of jazz. And then I finished college, and in college I did like music videos and those sort of things for like friends of mine, bands and things like that. So 1 or 2 of those is on Visual Digest as well. A couple more on VD music videos. So I've got like a couple of music videos that I've kind of done and things like that. None of them are like insanely amazing, but there's a couple of quite cool ones on there. And then I kind of couldn't really be asked to do music videos for a while because it takes so much time. I can believe it. Well, yeah, and with a lot of music videos, like I made one for my brother's band, and I just used footage from The Walking Dead. Like it didn't monetize it or anything like that, but the song's called "Walk with the Dead" by Bring the Revolution, and they're amazing. And I just got from season 1 to Walking Dead, and just because I'd seen The Walking Dead numerous times, and I just put footage together. But like you get the drum hit of just the snare drum going like that, and I got like a gunshot and a zombie head blowing up, but the milliseconds really count on that, and you could just spend hours and hours and hours faffing on that. And it's like you have to go out and film, do all this stuff, and then put it together. And it's like you get so much footage, and you have to edit it down. And I was like, how can I? I was I had like a break from that for a while, and then I was like, I kind of still want to do stuff. And I was chatting with a few mates of mine, this, that, and the other, and people always say I never shut up anyway. So podcasting is everything I like, which is, going out and doing stuff and creating content to release, but I don't have to edit it. I mean, I do a degree of editing, some silences. If there's a loud cough or something like that, I do cut that out and stuff. But generally speaking, I'd say 9 out of 10 podcasts, I don't really have to edit the in-between bits either. Yeah. Usually. Skype one's a little bit different because obviously there are latencies with pauses and people don't quite know when the other person's talking and that sort of jazz. Yeah. But apart from that, like it's so much nicer doing podcasting where, even the editing of this takes, a few hours a week to release an episode every week or try to, but it's so refreshing to be able to have this medium. And as you say, like thing is that YouTube is succeeding and is kind of oversaturating things now is because obviously things like PewDiePie and Yogscast and Let's Plays and all these sort of other things. Yeah. That all exploded a few years ago and now everyone's kind of running on the coattails of that. And now it's flattening out a bit and all the new things are coming out. So like Twitch is getting a bit more traction. Podcasting now is getting way more traction.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And where there's so many audio dramas coming out and like Marvel and
Stitcher.
Right? Like, have you listened to the Marvel and Stitcher Wolverine one?
No, I haven't.
It's amazing. It's 8 or 10 episodes long, I think. Each episode is about half an hour long, and it's like a proper audio drama. So there's, the voice of Wolverine, voice of these agents that are trying to find him. It's set in Alaska, but it's not like X-Men. It's more like Logan than anything. Okay. So it's slow, but it's obviously an audio format, so they can't have like this ridiculously big fight scene because all that would happen is for half an hour you'll hear and it just wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, just the sound of metal on metal. It's like
exactly, and Wolverine just grunting.
Yeah, I'd kind of like them to go like the complete like stage direction route instead, rather than making the sound effects. Just go down the route of just having sound of metal clashing on metal, sound of metal clashing on metal.
Have Patrick Stewart narrating all of it.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? I mean, I can't imagine. I know he's a busy guy, although this Picard series is coming out again soon, so I guess this won't be possible. But I feel like when he had downtime, this is the kind of thing he should have been involved in, And
having a voice like that and just being able to be, or like Morgan Freeman. Like, does he have a podcast? If he doesn't, why?
It's a great question. Yeah. Like it's, you see somebody put a podcast up today. It was like, I think David Tennant's got a podcast now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And this is like news to me today. So
are you telling me now? I've never heard of
that. But I can imagine somebody like Peter Capaldi would have a distinctive podcasting presence, especially if he goes Malcolm Tucker on it. Like, just the week in news, Malcolm Tucker style. That would be, I'd listen to that.
Yeah, why not? Just give it a go. I mean, I've listened to Stephen Fry's got a podcast that's pretty good. It's called The Great Leap Years or something. It's got like QI in that sort of. Or I say it's like QI. It's like all the stuff he does, which is his very soft voice, clearly more intelligent than you are, explaining intelligent things in a dummy way, and I love it. It's a really really good podcast. He there's loads of little tidbits of trivia that I picked up from that. Like I really like I'm not really an expert in anything. Which is why my podcast doesn't have a niche, but I know like little bits about most things. So it's quite rare, apart from I think cars and sport. They're the only two things I know basically.
I know fuck all about cars. I know they go and they stop.
Yeah, well, I can drive. That's it.
Exactly. That's all I could do. I know when we went for cars, we needed one. I knew what engine size we needed, and I knew that it needed to have 4 wheels. That was very important because the 3-wheel car era is long gone and never wasn't really a big deal then. I don't think it was basically a nice way for it seemed from speaking to my dad admittedly that 3-wheeled cars were a nice way for motorcyclists to get into driving without having to take as many exams. There was this weird kind of, I don't know if it was like a loophole or something. I'm sure somebody can feel free to correct me or something on social media, but I'm sure the way he said it sounded like there was a loophole where if you'd got a motorbike, then if you wanted to move to a 3-wheeled car, like there was some means of transferring your license that meant you didn't have to do the 4-wheeled car test unless you got a 4-wheeled car. I guess it's because of the center of gravity of the car or something.
Yeah, I think you could drive like a Reliant Robin or whatever they're called with a motorbike license. Yeah, I didn't think you needed to have that because I think my dad did that for a bit as well at one point.
Yeah, my dad had a motorbike for a while, and then he got a 3-wheeled Reliant Robin. And I think you're right. I think he didn't have to chop in his motorbike license. I think you could just drive it because it's one front wheel drive. It's if anything, it's safer.
It's basically a trike with a case on, anyways.
Pretty much. I really wish they'd marketed it that way. Buy the new
It's a trike with a case on.
Buy the new Reliant Robin. It's a trike with a case on. And don't you believe anything different, you fucks.
You do have radio voice, I will say, but you have I mean, not to offend you, Blake, and I'm cuddling up to Rob here, but Rob, you do have a proper radio voice.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say.
I mean, my dad always said I had the face for the radio, but that's
my mum said the same. Yeah, I didn't know how she knew you. It's weird.
Oh yeah, it's very strange. I almost call my podcast "Face for the Radio." Actually,
that's a good idea. That's a good name for a podcast.
I'm thinking about saving it, and maybe when I definitely 100% become as big as Rogan, and I've got
obviously
money coming out my ears. Yeah, that's definitely going to happen
for sure.
Yeah, well, of course. I said, everyone gets into podcasting for it's all that money.
Yeah, all that massive amounts of revenue cheddar. It's all about the live reads. That's the nadir of achievement for any podcaster is when they get to do their own Squarespace live reads. Every fucker, I swear. No, just not to say. And I have to caveat now that I've said that I'm not getting any money for this. I've used Squarespace. It's fine. It's a perfectly good website builder.
Yeah.
But everybody seems to be on it. Like in terms of that's the ad they have to read. Like it's that and
Audible.
Yeah, Audible's the big one. Like, just audiblepodcast.com where you can get your first book for free and all that jazz. And we have that, people can do that with Emotionally 14, but it's just like a link you click. It's not like an ad I don't have to read anything, which as it's an audiobook site, that suits me fine.
And don't forget World of Warships, obviously.
Oh, obviously World of Warships. Yeah. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention World of Warships or Stone Cold. Have you heard, Mike, are you a wrestling guy?
No, not completely honest. No, I used to play the games quite a bit, so I know.
Nice.
I know a lot more about wrestling than I probably think I do.
Okay.
I used to play WWE versus SmackDown and Raw, versus Raw.
Yep.
I played about
good choice.
4 years of those games.
Yes, there were a lot of them.
Taker was always my one.
Yeah. But yeah, Stone Cold Steve Austin, obviously of WWE fame, has his own podcast. And I remember saying to Blake at the time, it's very strange to hear Stone Cold Steve Austin doing Squarespace adverts and things like, what, you need a website, you bastard?
I saw a film with Stone Cold Steve Austin called, I think it was Monster Battle or something like that. And it was one of those straight to DVD horrendous.
Oh, wait. Is it like a Halloween wrestling thing?
Yeah.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, you got the werewolf, but it's actually literally just a bloke who's hairy. I mean, the makeup isn't too bad.
It's atrocious. Yeah.
It just stops, I seem to recall. It kind of, they have this whole heat where it's got the rounds are going on one side, the lightweight and the heavyweight. And then I think it gets halfway through the heavyweight and then one of them kills the other one. And then all of them just start kind of getting in the ring. And Stone Cold Steve Austin's the only actor in there, in air quotes, that actually is involved in the film at all. And you watch it and you go, this is quite crap, but I kind of want to keep watching. And then it just randomly kind of wraps itself up in 2 minutes, then it ends. You're like, oh, they clearly just run out of budget then.
Yeah, it's like how many more scenes can we do? What? we what? We ran out the budget before now. What?
What about the big finish?
Yeah, what about the? Oh man, we haven't even. So you're telling me we haven't even paid people for that scene, and they're not going to get paid?
That's what I wonder. Do you think that people, when they're in those sort of straight to DVD horror films, do you think that being in those sort of films basically destroys their career, or is kind of? Do you think anyone's ever really been in really crappy movies and then suddenly become famous? Because I can't think of any that have. It's normally you get bigger actors, obviously it's DiCaprio and things like that, but even James McAvoy, they normally kind of start on a TV series or just have a few little parts here and there on random things. But I don't think I've ever seen them in just actively terrible movies.
No, I'm trying to think. Even somebody like Statham. Obviously,
Statham.
Yeah, Jason Statham. No, I mean, The Meg is not. It's a B movie in tone, but it's not a B movie, and it's got a higher production value to it. And actually, I bought it.
I like it.
Yeah, I liked it. I watched it on a day where I was really, really sad and needed cheering up, and it did exactly the job it was meant to do, which was make me really, really happy because it was so much fun.
It's just Jason Statham. I wish the only thing that I wish about that film that made it better was that if he referred to himself in third person as Jason Statham.
Oh my God, that would have been amazing.
Jason Statham, we got to go kill this big fucking shark. And it was that. It'd be my favorite movie ever, I think. But
Jason Statham's going down to do some business.
Jason Statham's going to have a really weird relationship with his Asian girl just for the sake of it, because we need something on screen between sharks. It's basically it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
like, he's topless and attractive and kind of a dick.
I mean, those are all my buttons.
Yeah, The Meg was surprisingly a good movie, though.
It was. I agree. I'd say it was one of those ones. I'd had a really bad day because I'd got some bad news that morning, and I was just in a bit of a mope. And Jen, my fiance, said, like, "Why don't we go to the cinema and let's go see The Meg?" And I was like, you know what? Yes, let's go and do that. That sounds exactly the kind of thing I need. It's just some well-meaning schlock that will just, make me realize it's not all doom and gloom. And sure enough, it's Jason Statham playing up to the stupidity of that film. It's fucking Finding Nemo references. It's, it's always a bigger fish on screen, like represented in screen form beyond fan. It's almost like a callback to fucking Phantom Menace. Like that level of silliness about bigger fish. It's just everything I wanted it to be. And while you could probably make the argument that I didn't need to see it at the cinema, obviously, let's say, given the circumstances, I kind of did. But, it's a home release. It's one of those ones that as soon as it came cheap enough, which this week it did, I was like, yes, I'm having that. It's in my collection. Now, whenever I'm in a bit of a bad mood, that will be the movie that will bring me out of it. Or Mrs. Doubtfire, or Event Horizon, because this brain is pretty much a cycle of those three on loop. To give you an idea of how fucked up my brain.
I haven't seen Event Horizon, but I recall listening to one of your older podcasts like months ago now, when we were I think I was first in the BritPodScene or something like that.
Yeah,
and it was the Puppet Watchman episode where you were talking. So I specifically remember that being it. And you, for some reason, it was just you kept mentioning Event Horizon as well. And I think. Was it Blake, or was it someone kept saying to you that the fact that you always bring up Event Horizon at every episode?
It was Blake, because it's basically it's the relationship that Blake and I have. It's just Blake has to listen to me bang on about Event Horizon every episode at some point. It seems to have become like a everybody drink, where I just find a way to drop it into every episode in some context. One day we'll do a DVD commentary and it just won't work. It's just too on the nose.
So you're basically a vegan for Event Horizon.
Oh God, yeah, no, totally. If you define kind of veganism, which I mean, we're not without merit, as kind of the evangelism is part of it, then Event Horizon is very much my veganism. Like I'll find a way to work it into everything, every single discussion.
Change your ringtone so it's just like the main theme of it, and then if you just walk around in public, you can get yourself to call yourself. And then
what's that? Is that the theme tune to Event Horizon? One of my favorite movies of all time.
I also like your Boba Fett mug as well.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, it's pretty much the best mug ever, I think. I would read where it comes from, but I would spill hot coffee on my laptop, so I'm not going to do that.
I see. Well, you're not really committed enough to this podcast.
Clearly, yeah. I mean, that's, the laptop was not cheap, so yeah.
Yeah, I know. I had to buy a new laptop because my one died. That's 4 or 5 months ago.
My sympathies.
Yeah, it's very upsetting. I had a bing. Invited the printer, the toaster, but the remote control and the TV were off doing their own thing. They were too good for it, but whatever. Not holding a grudge.
There's always something that starts its own side project and thinks it can go off and do its own thing, doesn't it? And they come crawling back.
They will do.
Just a matter of time. It's always the way. TV and remote, back you come. And you're trying to be magnanimous about it, but at the same time, you're bitter and you're resentful that they even dared to try.
Yeah, you're like, how dare you stand where he stood?
Exactly, I would guess.
Yeah, no, none of us. It's all hypothetical.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. I mean, this is an appliance-based metaphor,
Yeah.
We don't deal in those very often, but at the same time, when we do, they're fucking spectacular. Let's be fair.
We've got to point all the attention to it, and there's going to be the audio snippet we put on everywhere. Is it about the great laptop burial?
The great laptop burial and all the appliances that came to see it off.
Yeah, those fuckers that didn't are too good for us now.
Yeah, did you do it like a 21 print salute?
Oh, that'd have been brilliant.
Yeah.
No, I kind of just, I got a fax machine and I basically called it on my mobile and put it on loudspeaker so you hear that horrendous fax noise. And it was that mixed with the AOL dial-up connection. I kind of mixed them together to make a dubstep funeral tune.
That might work, to be honest.
That would probably be fucking good. I don't know talent at all.
Yeah.
I've kind of built this up now. I feel like I should go and do this. Just so I can make this.
Talk yourself into projects, Mike. You're one of us after all.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking about other projects, I'm going to say with you and you and all your three sort of connections of the podcasting world. I've got a mate of mine who's been a guest on the podcast a couple of times, and he's an author, and I'm helping him launch a podcast as well.
Oh, cool. Nice.
And so I'm trying to work out how to, because I can either, I was thinking about doing it under sort of maybe a banner, like as in we're both, like Scroobius Pip, he's got Distraction Pieces podcast, and then he did a network, and it's the Distraction Pieces network. It's him, say Why to Drugs, Search and something or other, someone search, loads of them. And I was thinking, like, if I just, I'm kind of in that two mind thing where I can either kind of do what you do with the Emotionally 14 now for like a banner, or I can call it like the network. Like, do you call Emotionally 14 the network, or is it?
I probably should, but no. Yeah, it's one of those things that it was never planned to be as kind of all encompassing. I kind of, so like for a bit of behind the curtain stuff, I've always thought of it as kind of like a publishing house, like obviously like a book publisher would have lots of different authors underneath its thing. And then the banner would be like Penguin or Random House or whatever. Right. So I've kind of in my head, that's been Emotionally 14. So it's a place for all these different projects and ideas to be kind of collected, to then be promoted outwards to the sort of unsuspecting audience. So it's kind of like, it's become, I mean, now it's way bigger than I kind of envisaged it being. If you'd asked me this time last year, how big do you see it being by the end of the year? I would not have said 3 podcasts, 3 video series, 4 syndicated podcasts that are from all over the world, and then also the blog is still running. I would have imagined that one of those would have ground to a fucking halt just for the sake of, logistics. But that hasn't.
That's the only thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that I've written that off a long time ago, so that's not a problem for me.
The barrier for that is weird. You got the shame there, and then you got, I'm not going to do that joke again.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was asking because my mate, I'm speaking blah, 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 words. I was kind
We're professionals.
I talk all day, every day, not only at my workplace job, but also in my free time, and I still can't formulate sentences properly.
It happens. It happens to the best of us. I can do this for hours a week, and sometimes I do, but it doesn't mean that I won't start a sentence at work or on a show with the completely wrong words, or it'll end with the completely wrong words, and I'll kind of catch myself. Sometimes you can get away with it because it's funny, but that's not the word I went for at all. That's completely the opposite.
It's Emotionally 14 and verbally 4. That's basically what we go for.
Yeah, if that. I mean, sometimes I'm just babbling like an 18-month-old.
Just there. I'm making noise just until I can think of another noise to make with my mouth.
Yeah.
Exactly. But this mate of mine, he's basically he's an author, and he's got, I think this year he's going to have 2 more books out. He's currently got 2 books out. And one of my sort of ideas for his thing was kind of like reading out like a chapter, and that being like an episode. He'd do it like in a season, and at the start he'll kind of give a little bit of, I was influenced by blank, and then
I love blank.
Yeah, blank's always the best, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. Various artists, love them. My favorite band.
One of my mates, actually, funny story. One of my mates, this was a few years back now, but we were about 20 or so. We listened to music and all that sort of jazz, and he went, I've always wondered, and this is a smart guy, like he's much more intelligent than I'd say I am, and he went, I've never really understood, in certain music, what does feet mean? And we were like, what does feet mean? What, F-E-A-T dot? Is it, yeah? And it was like, are you joking? Is it, no, what does it mean? And I was like, featuring. He's like, I wondered that. It's just like, what the fuck could else? Yeah. It just got like a rapper's name and then feet and then another rapper's name. You don't even need to know what the middle word is. Like, if you see it more than once somewhere else, it clearly can only be a linking word. You
would hope, yeah. I mean, it's like a friend of mine had this once where he worked, where he got somebody walk up to him and say, we need to do something about this Pastures New because they keep nicking our stuff. Because every time somebody quit, they would say they're moving on to Pastures New, and this person thought it was a business, like a local office that was just stealing all of their workers.
I see.
Yeah, it's people are peculiar, and and I'm sure because we all do talkie podcasts, we've probably found the best examples of that and immortalized them in recording form.
Oh yeah, immortalizing the embarrassments when the apocalypse happens, and then thousands of years in the future, people somehow manage to find this laptop, or maybe the laptop are buried in the garden. When they finally find that, and then they'll be like, "Oh, what was this ancient civilization in the year 2000 like?" And then they'll just have me and my mates talking about nude pics for like 2 hours. It's like clearly they've come a long way.
Yeah. So when you say talking about them for 2 hours, it sounds almost like you're running down a list. Like there's this one that's 1008.jpg. That's pretty nice. It's probably a solid 7 out of 10. I like that one a lot. The pose is really cool and she's beautiful. Look at her.
Yeah, just going on, just all those thousands of nude pics that I get all the time because
Obviously,
of being a famous podcaster and all that. Obviously, they would throw themselves at me.
Yeah. Well, it's like, are you familiar with the Roman Podcast, the Canadian outfit?
I'm not afraid, no.
So they're a bit like, they're kind of like there's a theme, right? So there's like a Canadian crazy train, but they do, they look for like weird and hilarious news headlines, often from Florida, because apparently they're just a really good conduit for that. But they have this thing called the Tasty Nude campaign, where if you want to send a tasty nude, you can send it to one of the hosts, and the other guy's happily married. So if you want to send to him, it has to be tasteful. And the number of times they've just gone, we could really do with hearing from some women. Tasteful nudes, which is fine. You know, if people want to send them, then more power to them. But I just find it quite amusing that, like, you know, it's this sort of, we get, you know, we got sent a ton of nude stuff. But I mean, I could probably do without seeing so many cocks, honestly. It's just silly.
It's funny you say, a mate of mine, he works in a school as an IT technician, so he has to kind of monitor certain things. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a secondary school, so for any people on from England, that's age from like 11, I think it is, till 16. I think that's
I think you're compulsory until 16, and then you can elect to stay on for 18, or you can move to college or get into work at that point, right?
Yeah, something like that. And so he has to deal with that. And he was saying, like, the amount of girls who he's had girls who are like in year 7 come up to him and say, someone sent me this thing, how do I sort on my phone so I don't receive these? And just like boys sending girls pictures of their penis when they're 11. That's like, I don't have that kind of confidence about my genitals now. You might as well get it at the best of times. But it's like, I'm not sending a picture of my dick to anyone, let alone when I was fucking 11, when I had man boobs and a Jufro and it curled inside me, when I got excited. It's just like, I don't need that. Why would I send a picture of that? And I just can't imagine these guys who are 11 who are so proud of their probably chode that they're sending it to girls.
Let's be fair. Comparatively tiny penis as well. Like, it's probably the smallest it's ever going to be.
Exactly.
Like, apart from as an infant, in which, I mean, also, not for nothing, but it's a bit of a weird thing to be sending 11-year-old penises around. Probably that can't backfire, right? That's probably fine.
I was going to say that's a tough line of work when you're like, I've got to look at 11-year-old penises.
Yeah, it's for work. That's the podcast we will never run. That's the only one we've sworn. Yeah, the paedophile cast is never coming. Expression.
Christ, yeah, it's a weird thing with his line of work, because normally sometimes he comes back with some of the stories he tells me of just some of the most random shit people just try and search, or like when you're in school and things, like when I was in school, that we'd use the computer suites and all that sort of jazz, and then it'd be people going to gaming websites like Miniclip or Congregate or whatever. Yeah, other people going on YouTube or trying to, and often people try and use proxies to get out of the sort of school filter and things. Yeah, and just some of the links they go to nothing. Like they're like just trying so hard to find the right proxy to go to nowhere. They type in boobs once into Google, they see a flash for a second, and they get instantly banned for typing in a bad word. And 25 minutes trying to find the right proxy. I
can imagine. Yeah, I've often wondered, because obviously all this stuff that's on the search engines and on the web is forever, right? They're spending a lot of money building digital profiles of people for the purposes of marketing and all that stuff. And whatever your opinion is of that, it's clearly happening, right? Mm-hmm. I'm always curious, and it was kind of, my curiosity was mostly piqued when there was this whole kind of trend of digging up tweets that people had written in the past and kind of using it to shame people and things like that. I was really hoping that I was big enough, and I'm not, but I was really hoping I was big enough that somebody would go back and do it for me, because I'm really curious what I said. I've had Twitter for like 8-9 years, and I'm pretty sure I've never said anything particularly interesting, but I'd really love to find out that, I wouldn't love to find out that I said something fucking horrendous, because that would be, it comes with its own problems. But I was always curious of, like, I wonder if I've got anything like this that somebody, if I've written something on Twitter, I've written something that offends somebody, because that's just kind of the world in which we live and the nature of writing things.
Look, Rob, I know you want to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but it's just not going to happen. Okay?
I would love it if, by a process of elimination of everybody else in the world, I became the most qualified candidate because everybody else has said something reprehensible on social media. And I was like, hello. I tweet about games and lunch.
It'd be good for the podcast as well, because even if you somehow made it and it was utter wank, then it'd still be like, hey, there's that guy that ruined Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and almost like the Tommy Wiseau of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh my god, I'd love to be that so much.
Have you seen do you see his Instagram or anything? All he does is post quotes from himself. For anyone listening, Tommy Wiseau's the main guy from The Room.
Yeah.
He posts quotes from himself, primarily from the film The Room. So it's just these random nonsensical things that don't make any sense, and he puts like a laughing face next to it, and it's like, do you think that's actual comedy, or do you realise people are laughing at you?
I don't know.
Honesty, he's probably a millionaire now, so
no, it's very strange. Like that whole sensation about The Room in general. Like I find that the whole fact that it's a famous thing really peculiar, because we had those sort of when it was in say 80s and 90s and stuff, those things existed, but they were kind of in their own small little space. Like Blake and I were talking about it before you joined, Mystery Science Theater 3000. That was not a big thing.
I don't think I've even seen that.
Oh, I'd recommend go back and have a look at some of the older ones, because it's basically just a guy and two robots. So the premise is that a guy's been sort of stranded on a little space station in deep space, and in order to keep himself entertained, he gets sent crap movies by, I can't remember the exact.
It's like an evil. It's like a weird experiment this evil genius is trying to do, where they send him bad movies with the idea of trying to drive the guy insane. But basically, it's a very loose premise for him and the two robots to try and keep him sane by basically sitting there and take the piss out of the movie.
Yeah.
So basically, the whole episode is basically the film interspersed with like little cutscenes, basically going back, going, "Oh yeah, there is a plot," and then, but in between that bit, there is. Yeah, they're watching the film, and basically it's just an excuse for them to watch and take the piss out of the film. So and it's normally quite schlocky B movies or things with terrible effects or whatever. Occasionally, I mean, like I think there actually was a Mystery Science Theater movie which was basically like a high budget episode, really, and I think that's because it chose a slightly more popular film because it did This Island Earth.
Yeah,
but apart from that, there's normally like really dire films like Hobgoblins or I'm sure like Space Mutiny. Films that are normally score really low on IMDb.
Yeah, those kind of schlockfest. But like back in those days when that was a thing, it wasn't like prime time cable TV. It was public access videotapes were the way to see it and things like that. And now it seems to have become. I'm trying to how best to explain it, but it's like we've kind of gained this certain reverence for mediocrity, and what's more, that they're kind of really, really bad stuff. Because somebody like there was a serious conversation, I think on Twitter or something like that. I don't know. Well, I say serious, it's Twitter, so it's a good chance it's not the case at all. But there was this conversation about whether or not Tommy Wiseau should be allowed to direct Star Wars. I'm like, I don't want him anywhere fucking near anything remotely good. I don't. Like, he shouldn't be anywhere near anything with a franchise attached to it unless he wants to make The Room too, because that's his property to do with as he pleases. But like, other than that, he's a very peculiar character to me, because like, am I right in thinking he spent about $5 million on that movie or something ridiculous?
No one actually knows how much he spent on it, but have you seen the film The Disaster Artist?
No, I haven't. I know of it, but I haven't seen it myself.
It made The Room. Like, I watched The Room, I thought it was amazing. All the references and the plastic spoons and all the
you're tearing me apart, Lisa.
Yeah, it's all that sort of jazz. The film itself is brilliant, but I found that Disaster Artist actually makes that film better, because it's made by, essentially, Tommy Wiseau recorded the making of The Room, but he just didn't give it to anyone or do anything with it. I assume he assumed the film would be so big, everyone would want to see the making of it, and then obviously no one did. But what he did is he basically, when he gave sold the rights to James Franco and whatever the movie distribution place was, he basically let them see all the footage. So almost everything, I say almost everything, it is meant to be absolutely everything, but Tommy Wiseau said something like, oh, it's 96% accurate, something ridiculous. But the other guy, Greg Sestero, says, no, it's 100% accurate.
Yeah, I don't know what where we disagree on this for. That's a really peculiar number to, like...
It's a pretty peculiar guy, though, isn't he?
For? Like what? Go back through the film and identify. In fact, that would be a commentary I would pay money to see. Is 100%. Tommy Wiseau doing the disaster artist as a commentary, talking about The Room, and just like, and then even if it's just, yeah, that's right, yeah, that's true, no, that bit's bollocks, yeah, that's true, yeah, that's true, just to figure out if he's talking about 96% accurate.
I know. It's really weird. I remember reading, it was either I heard it in an interview or I read it in an article or something, and it was some really random number of, it wasn't like 13, it was like 95 and up, but it was one of those. And I was just like, what's the point in even, I think it's just kind of covers back maybe because he does look kind of bad in that film in a sense, but because he got all that footage of behind the scenes of The Room and they recreated it, everyone involved says this is basically what happened. And the film Disaster Artist is based on the book written by Greg Sestero, who plays Mark in the film. So it's a really good film, actually, Disaster Artist on a standalone. But I say to people, what they need to do is like watch The Room, then watch Disaster Artist, and then like watch The Room again. Not necessarily one sitting.
No, that would be a marathon. I would probably kill myself afterwards.
Yeah, you just go brain dead, especially because Franco does such a good job of doing Tommy Wiseau. So it's just so much Wiseau. It's like I can't deal with this.
This is Wise overload. That's what they'd call it if it was a thing.
Wise overload.
A scientific kind of notion would be wise overload.
That's a good one. Yeah.
But yeah, it's the kind of thing. Having said that I could see them doing. I don't know. Do you spend a lot of time in London?
Here and there, bits and pieces. I do go up there quite a lot. Yeah, I've been up there once already this year. So I suppose so.
Yeah, because there's this theatre in sort of in the West End called, I think it's the Prince Charles Theatre,
right?
And they're quite famous for movie marathons. So they did when I first started. So I work in London, so I'm obviously there quite a bit. But the first couple of months I was there was a marathon on that I really wanted to stay for, but it was on like a Saturday night. I don't live in London, so obviously I'd have had to figure out where to stay until the morning and all that jazz. But it was I'm trying to think which order they played it in. I think it was RoboCop, The Raid, and then Dread.
Oh,
because they were arguing that those first two films combined pretty much makes Dread.
That's a very good point I haven't thought of, but I don't really know anyone who likes only two of those three films. Like everyone who likes two of them likes the third one.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good summation of that entire situation. So I was desperate to go and see this, but like I say, I talked myself out of it because I've done overnight movie marathons before. You don't feel good the next day.
No, I can imagine
because you're sitting there watching this massive illuminated screen for 10 plus hours
as well, which is really bad for your eyes.
And you only get coffee breaks and snack breaks. You don't get a proper, there's not a proper gap for you to go and get something significant to eat. And also it's 1 o'clock in the fucking morning. What's open?
Well, yeah, exactly. And because like when Star Wars Last Jedi, when that came out, and they were like, you could watch Force Awakens and Last Jedi. And I was like, well, Last Jedi is the longest Star Wars film ever. And Force Awakens is pretty damn long. And you put them together and it's like, I think Last Jedi is 2.5. And I think Force Awakens is like 2:15, 2:20.
Something like that, yeah.
Basically 5 hours. It's like, now I love Star Wars, as discussed earlier. I have it literally tattooed on my skin and I'm going to be getting a whole sleeve of it. But sat down almost dead still for 5 hours.
That's hard
to watch, I mean, granted, the chronology, it probably would have made a lot of sense because, Force Awakens takes place, the end of that is like, a few hours before the start of Last Jedi. But
yeah. It's like, and like it cuts in basically pretty much exactly where it leaves off in some character arcs at least.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, with obviously Rey and stuff, but like, it's kind of like, almost like Rogue One and New Hope is that sort of thing where there's almost just like a vague period of, a few hours.
It's understood it's not long either way. Like, yeah.
No one's got a beard out.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to be able to get full facial hair from shave. Like, there's not enough time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have interest, just while we're talking about Star Wars, even though you've got the other show on it.
Oh, no, by all means.
Are you, Blake, are you much of a Star Wars fan as well? Or am I only going to be?
Oh, yes, don't worry. You're in good hands.
Okay, good. Is it both of you who do talk Star Wars?
No, I do it with Blake's brother, Brad. But Blake is, there's no reason why he can't come on.
Fair.
Yeah, I just haven't. It's not because I'm not one. Not because of that. I think, I do 2 out of 3.
Exactly. Talk Star Wars hasn't always been emotionally 14. It's kind of, I've acquired basically this, if you imagine it like a big infinity gauntlet of media properties. Yeah. Last year I finished the whole thing. I've got like a big heavy arm full of stuff
As long as you're not trying to get me and my other upcoming project, I'm all right.
No, that's fine.
Unless you've got this gigantic podcast network of billions of listeners, then I am in.
I don't know if I don't think I can stretch to that. I think that would be Maury Povich would be like, the reality of your download shows that was a lie.
The reason I bring up Star Wars is just because anecdote. Basically, the other night. Double anecdote. Here we go. Tangentially, I should call my podcast "Tangentially Speaking," but I think that's already a podcast.
Maybe. But, yeah, it sounds like something I've seen somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's Dr. Christopher Ryan actually, but he's a guest of the Joe Rogan show. But anyway, I bring this up. My girlfriend's called Megan, and the reason I actually went to see the Meg at the cinema was because she saw the trailer of the film The Meg, and she was like, "The film's named after me. We have to go see it." And she likes most films anyway, so it wasn't just like, she naively is like one of the stereotypical women who owned like chick flicks and then randomly goes to this big fish movie.
Yeah. And then afterwards, it's like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, like the love story Statham and the Asian one was really unrealistic. I'm not happy about that.
Yeah.
There's a whole ex-wife drama as well, isn't there? So I guess it's got more romance than probably better love chemistry than episode 2 or Twilight. So.
Yeah, well, oh God, yeah, especially Twilight. Fuck me.
Yeah,
what a waste of my fucking time, that last movie. I've never seen.
For the first time about 2 months ago with my niece and Megan, and when I was very drunk at my mum's wedding last year, and I agreed to watch all the Twilight films with my niece. People can't see your face, but it was very nice and telling.
Pity is my face for you. Like I feel bad for you that you had to that you'd agreed to do that, because I would have also the next morning I'd have gone. Now I'll caveat by the fact I've never really. It's very unlikely I ever wake up from a night's heavy drinking and go, I did something so catastrophically fuck up that it's impossible to come back from. Something like that, I would wake up and go, fuck.
I've only stomached 2 of those movies, so I couldn't stomach anymore.
I've only done the last one, which is probably the worst one to do, but yeah.
No, I've just done the first 2, and yeah, after that I only did it because Kat's sister wanted to see him when she was of that age when Twilight was big, and she was the right age for Twilight. And I just went to the point, and I was like, after seeing that one, I was like, no, not seeing anymore. I've done the good.
I've done my bit. I've paid I've done my time. I've paid my dues. I'm no longer a threat to society. Let me out.
I saw New Moon in like opening night in the cinema, and it was just surrounded by fucking tweens.
Just estrogen everywhere.
And they were all screaming at the cinema. And I'm just like being like, you don't do this in the cinema.
Who does that? Who does that? Honestly.
Biggest pet peeve in the whole world. People when they applaud in the cinema. Yeah. I don't give a fuck who they are. Okay, they need to fuck off. Like, I'm sorry how rude that sounds.
I totally agree.
Fucking stand with you. Applause is to show like actors and people on stage that you appreciate them, or musicians stuff. If you're clapping in the cinema, here's what happens. You're clapping in a fucking room by yourself, except you're with loads of other people who are also not associated with the film.
They all think you're twats, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
They all think you're a twat for doing that. Like there was a thread doing the rounds on Twitter the other day about somebody who they were like, "Oh, I was in Last Jedi on opening night, and people gasped when Snoke was killed, and they cheered when Luke came back on crate, and they were real Star Wars fans." And Brad quoted it and said, like, one of my favorite Brad tweets, certainly of recent memory, maybe of all time. This sounds like a fucking nightmare, to be honest. I'm glad they don't do it in UK cinemas.
Oh yeah. Well, I hate people like I had an Odeon Limitless card, so
another kind.
Yeah, so I haven't got one anymore. I couched it the other day. I just don't really have time because of the podcast. I don't really have time to go to the cinema. You have to go like once a week to really make it viable. Yes, totally. But I was basically going to loads and loads of films and stuff, and I went and saw a couple of like the sort of animated kids movies, because usually they're actually quite good, or they're all right. It's quite rare that I watch one and it's like actively shit. So, like normally it's like that was all right, or like Coco and Finding Dory. I watched
How to Train Your Dragon the other day. I thought it was fucking brilliant.
Yeah, How to Train Your Dragon 1 and 2 are awesome.
They're great. Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, it's surprising how good the quality is. But obviously, everyone of our sort of age, I imagine, thinks about Shrek, where Shrek is just amazing.
I still think that in some ways holds up. The animations, the CG doesn't date fantastically well. It's just one of those things, because obviously the technology is always coming on in leaps and bounds, even year on year. There's these big improvements in CG tech, and obviously when it's completely CG, it's even more glaring. Like you go back and watch some of like the original Shrek.
Beowulf.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Beowulf, because Beowulf was trying to look like it was real, whereas Shrek, you've kind of got, apart from Lord Fuckwad, you've basically
it's stylized.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you get that air to it. But basically, I was generally saying, because I went to the cinema and I saw, it might have been Incredibles 2 or it was Coco or Storks or something like that. And I just remember it was quite early on in the film being out, so the film thing was rammed. And I was sat next to a woman who, I hate these kind of people. It makes it sound like I'm some sort of hate-filled person, but I just say, when I go to the cinema, I am. Anywhere else, I'm fine. I'm nice and chill. But this woman who was, stereotype people, I generally have only ever found this from middle-aged women.
Okay.
They have to vocalize exactly what they're feeling all the time. So they're gasping at everything. They're going, oh my God, whoa, do you see that? Literally that all the time. And it's I have been, know what's going on. You don't need to do this for them.
Yeah, I have been to the cinema with people who do that. And in my experience, it's not exclusively limited to middle-aged women, but I know what you mean. It's like predominantly it tends to be that demographic that seems to slip into the bad habits the most. Yeah, it's infuriating.
I'm not trying to stick out point out any of the all the middle-aged audience of either our podcasts. But
don't imagine that the Venn diagram for middle-aged women and people who listen to the Crazy Train is anything other than two circles on a bit of paper that are completely disconnected.
Yeah, I mean, have you looked on like one of your hosting sites? I mean, I host on Podbean, and it tells you like where people are and things like that. I've got like one person who's ever downloaded the show in the Philippines, and there's lots of random little places where I've just got like one download. I
love stuff like that. Yeah,
it cracks me up. Imagine one bloke who goes, "I'm going to give this a go," and they download it. It's the 10 minutes. Go,
that's cool.
For me, mate.
That's cool. That was all right. That was the thing I did. But we in Talk Star Wars, we make the joke that we're massive in Uganda because like we're 100 in like with the top 150 TV and film podcasts there.
I had that. I was like 97th for like one day or something, or 73rd or something, and I was like,
you turn up in like, but the thing, I get this alert thing that pops in every now and then. That's just like, you have charted in Kazakhstan. I was like, okay, what do I do with this information?
Just thumbs up.
Just Kazakh. I just Kazakh the fuck out of this show. Just make it really Kazakhstan friendly, and just to the exclusion of all other markets. This is the growth market for podcasting. Kazakhstan and Uganda are the places to fucking be. Apparently, turns out.
Yeah.
But
first, on the Crazy Train.
Exactly. This making that big push for Eastern Europe. Yeah, we do get a lot of blog hits from Russia, but I think they're bots.
Yeah,
and not just because it's from Russia, because obviously that would be an easy gag. But I genuinely think they're bots because they tend to all turn up on one day. It's like you go from blog, a couple of hundred, few hundred hits, 5,000, few hundred hits. I'm skeptical. Yeah, I'm skeptical. But on the plus side, we seem to have an audience in unknown region, which for anything doing with Star Wars is a really nice place to have.
Exactly. You just got like the person who basically tutored Snoke. Apparently, he's just listening to your...
Yeah, the Yuzhan Vong are massive on Talk Star Wars, I think.
Definitely.
We're talking kind of obviously quite nicely about those. So maybe they're just like, oh, it's nice to hear us. It's nice to hear us tell both sides of the story.
When we come down to Earth and slaughter everyone, then we'll have them as our entertainment.
Yeah, they'll be the last to die, and to be honest, I'll live with that. That's not a bad lot to have in life,
Now back to being a legend.
That's good. I was going to say, the reason I brought up Star Wars just of interest was I was basically the anecdote within the anecdote. I was with my girlfriend. Yeah, it's crazy. It's a Crazy Train. I'm just going to keep trying to say Crazy Train as much as I can in this
Do it. Yeah.
And then once it's been like an hour, which I don't know, I'm not even keeping track of time, so pointless. I'm just going to start saying Genuine Chit-Chat, just drop it into the conversation.
It is a little bit harder to work into conversation, but I have faith in you, Mike. I'm sure you can.
As long as it doesn't go into like the Genuine Train or Crazy Chit, then we're sure.
The Genuine Train. Oh my God, what is that?
That sounds like someone who's like really into like saying swag in YOLO. That's what it sounds like. Oh,
yeah,
a Genuine Train.
Yeah. Oh, that is like it would either be a rap group or some like hippie attempt at doing a podcast, like a really kind of we're here to tell stories and no lies. That's the main thing. Just genuine train.
Take you on the most gentle train ride for your soul.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, funnily enough, you say that. I've mentioned this on the show before, but it was a while ago, so I don't think I've mentioned it recently. So when I said about just doing a cursory Google of any good name you have for a podcast, the reason I say that is because a couple of years ago, I got a tweet via DM from a very apologetic German man who was like, I'm really sorry, I didn't do my research and I should have looked to see if the name was in use. and I realized what he was talking about. I went to his Twitter and he was advertising his new German spirituality podcast, The Crazy Train. And I replied back and I tried to be as nice as I could about it, because obviously he hadn't been a big dick about it and, walked in and gone, oh, one of us is going to have to move, get out of the way. But obviously, history has proven that some Germans have done that.
Low blow.
Technically,
it did bother you a lot more than you.
Yeah, I'm totally over it. It's been years. But he was very nice about it, and he wasn't, like I say, he wasn't bit aggressive and a dick about it. And I replied back to him and just said, "You're talking about a German spirituality podcast. We're a bunch of British people just talking bollocks. I think there's room for both. I think it's very unlikely. The main thing I worry about with podcast names is confusion between the two. And I think that's probably another Venn diagram that's just two circles on a bit of paper. I don't think there's a lot of people who are like, this British bloke podcast of random bollocks is fine. What I really want to do is tap into my German spirituality while I'm here."
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you bring up that the podcast name thing, because there's a couple of, are you in a lot of the Facebook groups for the podcast community and all that sort of jazz?
To a point, yeah. I find I don't get a lot of notifications. I don't get a lot of chance to check social media a lot. So like my job is pretty forgiving about social media, but I don't like to take the piss. So, I kind of get what I need to do done. And then if I get a chance, I might idly browse it just kind of later on in the day, but not, I certainly couldn't keep up with, I can barely keep up with the notifications I get, and I'm not in many of those groups. So if I was to join them up with all of them, I'd be up shit creek without a boat.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's quite overwhelming. I'll look at, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, 13 Facebook notifications, and it's like memories, one tag of your mates, and then 12 people posting in different podcast groups. Then if you're friends with anyone on Facebook with an individual who's in the podcast groups, then every time they post or comment on something, then you get a notification about that as well. So it can be a bit overwhelming at times. But the reason I mention it is because you get a lot of people on these podcast groups mentioning numbers all the time and that sort of thing, which does bother me a little bit. But one thing that people don't seem to say enough is, when someone says, "Oh, I'm starting a podcast, what some tips and tricks and stuff." Yeah. The thing should be, have a unique name. Like, even if the name sounds a bit crap, it's better to have a slightly crap sounding unique name than something that sounds good that's got other things. Because it's like there's so many times where there's been a podcast. There's a podcast, shout out to In the Black podcast.
Okay.
And they're absolutely amazing. The logo is like, it's like Superman. But as he opens up, it's like a fist and it's orange instead of the Superman logo.
Oh, cool.
The reason I have to mention that is because there's another one or two podcasts also called In the Black.
Right.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I think the In the Black podcast that I'm referring to, which is hosted by, I think it's Mr. In the Black himself, Big O, he's called. So people will know if they go check that out.
Yeah.
It's an amazing show and I absolutely love it, and it's nowhere near as big as it should be. But when I first, I think we saw promos or something like that. When I first looked it up, I just went, In the Black, and I found 3, and I was just like, I don't know which one this is. And obviously what I did, because we were doing promo swap and stuff, I looked on the social media and things where I was contacted. I found the logos that linked and all that sort of jazz. But it's just like, so with a band, if you have a band name and there's already a band called that name, even if they're really small, unless it's like completely inactive, you shouldn't really go near it. And even then, I'd say to err on the side of caution.
Yeah, totally. Because it also, not for nothing, but if you, the only situation I think it's kind of acceptable is the situation that happened to my friends James and Ads. They started a Tolkien podcast and they called it An Unexpected Podcast, which is a good name. So good, in fact, that another podcast dropped hours before with the same name.
Really?
And neither one knew the other one was going to be a thing. And they both dropped within the same 24-hour period, the first episode.
Oh, wow. That's madness.
Yeah. It's like, how can you, there's nothing you can do about that.
No.
And, thankfully for the people who dropped first, one of the guys is Canadian, so they just went with it and just changed their name. But, you can imagine, well, we were here first. Well, not really, but it becomes like if you count it in time zones, actually we uploaded hours before. If you,
that's a good point. But yeah, it's a weird thing. And you mentioned earlier in the chat about sort of my name, the podcast's name. Yeah. And the funny thing is that I think it's a brilliant name, but I didn't even come up with it. I was chatting. I've got everyone I think is in group chats on Facebook with your mates and things, and I'm in one with a couple of mates of mine who I've been friends with for 14 years now. And I was talking to them and I was like, I want to start a podcast, all the ideas, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I want to call it like now I'm about to say it out loud. It makes me sound like such a fucking tool. Now that it's like humans or sapiens, or just because my whole idea was, interviewing having chats with guests, not interviewing them, and they're all different people. And the tagline's honest conversations with interesting people. So it's going to be kind of like, that sort of thing. Well, Genuine Chit-Chat, I think, fits much better with it. But
I see how you went to. I can see how you went for the kind of human sapien vibe because, like I said, that's the only common thread they all have.
Exactly, and that was the problem I was finding with my show. And I was like, every time I looked up something, there was like, there's obviously a lot of media audience sapiens. I think there's a lot of TV shows about humans or being human and these sorts of things. Yeah. And I was like, if I could think of something clever enough that includes one of those names, you could almost be like, if someone's searching for one thing, they could find my show accident maybe. But I was kind of like, I didn't really want to do that, but I was like, maybe if I find the right fit, I could. And I spoke to the guys and I sent through about 20 different variants of names and stuff, and there's one that I can't remember what it was now that I was basically leaning on, and all my mates they're quite nicely honest with me, which is what I need a lot of the time. They're like, in all honesty, mate, they're all quite shit. It's like, okay.
That's a good kind of mate. Yeah, it's like you'd hope they kind of ideally be a bit more constructive, but at the same time, at least they're honest.
Yeah, they're all like, none of these are actually that great, except these two are all right. If you really want to go with that one, you can, but not too sure. And then one of my mates,
so not bad.
Yeah, and I said that one thing I kind of wanted, I think it's called like Genuine Humans or something, and that's a horrendous name because I'm fairly Photoshop savvy. I used to work in graphic design and stuff, and I just had the image of the logo was just genuine, but written in like really like over the top like silver or gold font with like a little shine on it to be like genuine, like ding. Like, was that sort of
authentic, 100% real grade?
Exactly, like when you get really cheap stuff from like Poundland or something, and it's 100% genuine, and they've like put extra emphasis on the graphic of genuine to emphasize how genuine it is.
It's totally genuine. It's just a pound.
Exactly. So we're so genuine that we spend extra money emphasizing how genuine we are. I was like,
okay.
So
interesting.
And I was like, I had that idea in my head, and I kind of said that, and then one of my mates just went, "What about Genuine Chit-Chat?" And I was like, that's bloody brilliant, that is. Yeah, and then I've had a couple of people say, I really like your name. And it's like, I do too. And I didn't even think about it. And my mate who came up with the name is one of my only mates who refuses to come on the podcast at all because he's so introverted. He doesn't really want to be on the spot.
That's fair. Yeah, that's the reason my Jen will never find her way on here. Because, like those Myers-Briggs personality tests you can do that kind of group you into different categories based on your sort of extroversion, introversion
sort of traits of people.
Yeah, exactly. I did the test at work because we've been talking about it a lot at work, and so we did it. And I came home and told Jen about it, and she said, "Let me do the test." I was like, "Okay." Now, bearing in mind, being a podcast, you'd expect there'd be a high level of extroversion from me, but it's like 51-49, and it's quite it's quite in flux. It's quite. At the same time as the way I've kind of quantified it is sometimes I really need to be around people, and then sometimes I need to be left the fuck alone. And if you see me at work, that would pretty much be like how you would describe, like, yeah, he seems to just need to be left to himself sometimes. But Jen did the test and her introversion came out as 94%.
Jesus.
I was like, I'm amazed I've fucking seen you.
She's an extra in her own life.
Yeah, exactly. Just, answer an online dating profile and then just never, you meet up and it's a computer. It's still...
Just a silhouette. It's just that shadow sat on the chair.
Yeah, it's like the episode of Big Bang Theory where he projects himself onto the TV and just hangs a shirt off the stand. Like, I thought that would be kind of a 94. 94? Like, yeah. It's mad. But then at the same time, then I was like, she said, now do you see why whenever we need to do customer service things, I'm always really keen for you to do the phone call? And instantly I just feel bad forever because I haven't always been so forgiving about that. I've sometimes been like, no, come on, please make that fucking call. And then, clearly...
Where it's like, right, you are still 6% extroverted, actually. So this is one of those times...
You can deal with the energy suppliers today. Not quite that bad. But no, I'm very busy. Sometimes I'm just too busy to deal with every single thing. That's all it is.
I know what you mean with the introvert extrovert thing. I mean, I have technically three older brothers, but two of them are half brothers. One's brother-in-law.
Oh, okay. I have two brothers. Well, technically three brothers. I'm like, I'm curious.
Is that what the question was going to be?
I don't know what the question was going to be. I'll just in my head. I was just like, I don't know what. I'm interested where this is going.
Start sentences with their families. Yeah, this is kind of my brother. It's like, kind of.
Yeah.
He's around like.
Oh, it's like my kind of week releases. Yeah.
But yeah, and two of my half brothers. That's why they're like 17 and 20 years older than me and stuff. But
okay.
I'm saying this because if anyone's listening to my show, they'll hear me talk about my brothers. So, but it was just when I was younger. They didn't grow up with me. They were my dad's side, but not my mum's. You know, my dad was married before my mum and stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't, and because my parents were a bit older, they didn't interact with me in the same way. They were very loving parents and all that sort of jazz, but I didn't get the playfulness you normally get with siblings and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really have any friends till secondary school, which is the mates I've got now. I've just one set of mates and just stuck with them for hour, or they kind of stuck with me probably.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's I like the way you phrase it, like Watchmen. Like maybe they're trapped in here with me, or maybe I'm trapped in here with them. Friendship.
I love Rorschach as well.
Yeah, genuine chit-chat.
Yeah.
Chuck one in for you there.
Thanks, mate.
I think we're into the second hour, so I thought I'd chuck it in.
That's all good. Right, just being genuine, about our chit-chatting.
Exactly. Nicely done.
And the reason I mentioned this is because when I was younger, I basically, as I didn't have any friends till secondary school, when I got friends, I was kind of clingy with them and stuff. And what I've noticed as I've gotten older is I've become kind of like codependent in a sort of way. Like I can be left by myself for like a day or two, because when I do podcasting on like a Sunday night is when I release an episode, I just kind of lock myself away for about 4 or 5 hours and just outros, editing, blah, 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 all that crap. And I really like to be left alone when I'm working, when I'm busy, that sort of stuff, when I'm doing chores or anything like that. But as soon as I've done that, I kind of almost need to be with like around someone. Like I can hear myself for an evening or two, but if I have like 3 days and I don't hang out with any mates or anything, I just start getting so low, and it's just quite weird and sad, but it's just randomness to it.
No, I totally get it. Like there are times where, I get invited to something, I'm just like, oh, no. It's not to say that I wouldn't have fun if I went there, but sometimes I just don't want to.
That explains why you didn't come to my birthday party.
Well, to be fair to me, Mike, you didn't tell me when it was or where. I can only work with what you give me, and
also my hope and love would transcend that, but clearly you're not the one.
No, I do need Google Maps occasionally as well. Yeah, but I'll keep that in mind, because presumably you'll have another birthday in the next 12 months. So
one would hope so. Yeah,
I'd be all over that shit. Unless it's a leap year.
Exactly. Yeah, my mate actually, she's been on the show, Carla. Her daughter's born on the 29th of February.
Okay,
this is the coolest. Like it's really not when you think about it. How it's not cool, but it's just the chances of that. Obviously, it has to be every 4 years, so it's like 365 times 4 plus 1.
Yeah, there's some mathematical equation that makes it astronomical odds.
Yeah, probably 1500-ish or something around those lines.
I would think. Yeah, I'd guess so. I mean, obviously, the stars have to align for that to work. Like, not only do you have to be born on the right, like you have to be conceived on the right day. That's a very tricky business,
imagine trying to plan that. Imagine trying to actually plan to have a baby born.
Yeah, exactly. Just the idea of, I don't want to think about the logistics involved, like the wall charts you'd have to have of like, it just says in bang here in big letters on the camera.
Just a big target, big target. Like, then the roof opens up and there's all the stars aligning, like literally in Hercules and stuff.
Like, quick, bend over.
Quick, right now, quick.
Yeah.
Right, if I come at midnight, then we can try and get you to push through a little bit harder or push through a little bit later.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, I mean, it's kind of, for me, being born in a leap year is probably like the anti-cool, like it's the cool equivalent of being born on Christmas. Because like I've got a couple of mates who are born on Christmas Day, and when they were kids, it sucked because they get presents, sure, but they get one set of presents for the day, and like they might, your parents, if you had Christmas Day birthday, might spend a tiny bit more, but they're not going to double the budget. And I can understand that, because obviously kids. If there's one thing you can say about me when I was a kid, I had no idea what things cost. Didn't mean I didn't want them. And, my parents were, I certainly don't feel like I went without, in terms of like, there were no Christmases where it's like, no, you've been bad, here's a lump of coal. It's always like, because I mean, if nothing else, I don't think they could make use of it. So they're probably just like, let's find him some other shit gift.
Well, yeah, it's also, if you give him a shit gift that at least he can play with, at least he can fuck off for a while, we can have some peace.
Exactly. So, it's like, PlayStation 2, amazing. How did you know? It's like, we didn't. We just assumed it would make you fuck off for the next 6 years. Like,
let's just hope, and then at Christmas, we can just get drunk and not have to worry about you anymore.
Exactly. And I mean, they certainly seem to go down that route a few times for Christmas. So,
and that's why you've got Papa PlayStation.
Exactly. now I've kind of kept it. It's like anytime I think my parents are stressed, I go out and buy a console. It's weird. Just run out of room.
Yeah, just a stack to the walls of them. Just like
exactly, yeah, just boxes and boxes of the fucking things. I forget. How the hell am I going to store these damn things?
Don't worry about that. Just buy another one.